Bitcoin, I mean XRP, this one, this data was crazy, man. So we literally on this specific chart, 78 cents. On this one, as you could see, it only came down to 217 and it hit this demand zone and it hit this demand zone as well. On this next one, it came down to $1 on the dot. Crazy. So like, look, at the end of the day, nobody was really catching that perfectly. Retail was not able to buy that perfectly. So most of retail probably bought around over here anyways. On this chart, 140. So you see like this is insane. It's just crazy, crazy retracement. Another one over here at 157. So I don't know which one is the most accurate one, like the one that's the most credible. I really don't know. I usually look at this chart. No, I usually look at this one, the Binance one. So as of right now, this is how the monthly candle is looking. Um, yeah, this was just a huge liquidity grab. This happened back in something similar back in 2017 before the price went to the upside. So we know that the macro is bullish right now. And yeah, if you were leverage trading, then they basically just took out people who were in longs as they're preparing to bring this to push price into price discovery. Simple as that. Simple as that. Crypto's a dirty game, so yeah, they had to make sure that a lot of people didn't. Whoever was leverage trading, they had to make sure they didn't make it to these price levels. Now is a better time to, enter on a leverage trade at the right range, obviously, before they push price to these higher levels. So it's a dirty game. This crypto stuff is dirty. I never trust crypto exchanges. That's why I don't recommend leverage trading. I trade indices and forex, and I prefer to trade in on forex brokers than crypto exchanges. If I'm being honest, like crypto exchanges are dirty. So yeah, you just got to be careful in this game. So XRP, let's see how this week ends up closing out as well, because this is very similar to where, yeah, we could get a little bit of pushes to start the week off, and then midway through the week, they push us down, and then we continue higher later on in the week. So it's a little early to be saying, oh yeah, we're just gonna, fly from here, because I understand that the market can still just be a little bit volatile. Nothing crazy. I don't see us going like below $1, none of that. But we could probably just still range anywhere between, these ranges over here. I mean, once again, the fact that this data is different makes it difficult to know which one is the most accurate one. Um, I did tell you guys last week, I said expect a liquidity grab literally the day before all that happened. But when I said that, liquidity grab, I was talking about just sweeping this low and we come anywhere between 250 to 260, which basically we're at right now. But I was definitely not expecting a drop like this. Well, I don't really think this is real, to be honest, but yeah, they just did it to a whole different level. So we'll see how this week ends up closing. Just, if more than likely this is just early week deceptive price action, and they're probably gonna retrace it just a little bit midway through the week towards the end of the week and then close off the week to the upside. Now I can be wrong, but I'm just looking at things from a worst case scenario perspective, because they can do that because they can just push this to the upside because everybody's probably thinking that the market is going to do this. So there's not enough data right now to really see exactly what we're going to do from here, but this would be the most likely scenario, but do not be surprised if they just, push it higher and only retrace here and then continue higher and then retrace right here and then continue higher. Don't be surprised of that either. So, like I told you guys in the chat, don't look for perfect entries when it comes to anything. Just if you see the market is creating higher lows, even on the micro, pay attention to the micro. Like right here, this was a higher low. This was a low. This was a higher low. And then it continued higher. So this was a good buy. But remember, they can still just come down and sweep these areas to then go higher. So it's tricky because we're like still recovering from this massive liquidity event. So the market is tricky within that first week after. Towards the end of this week, things will look way clear, and then we'll get to know and see what is coming up. But once again, this does not change the fact that the macro is bullish. So I do still think that the overall trend is pushing to the upside, and that's where we are headed next. So, all this little micro price action is really irrelevant, to be honest. Unless you're day trading, it's irrelevant. And most of us are just holding spot and waiting for higher prices. You could outperform a lot of leverage traders just holding spot. If you're not a trader, I don't recommend to leverage trade because once again, I just don't trust crypto exchanges. If you're gonna trade crypto, I would say do it on a different broker. Like you can margin trade crypto on Forex brokers. That's what I usually do when I do trade crypto. But yeah, I don't trust crypto exchanges like that. All right. So yeah, once again, right now on the micro, price action looks good on the micro, but it could be deceptive. Once again, we're still early. We're literally only 3 days past this recent liquidation event. So, look, it's creating higher lows. It's respecting these little demand zones right here. This is what price does. And as it slowly creeps to the upside. So, it's likely we can just go from here, or, they bring us midway through the week, they'll probably bring us down here, worst case scenario, and then push us higher. So it's 50-50 right now. It's 50-50 right now. But regardless, we should continue higher from here. So this is basically like a COVID reset and then a continuation, V-shaped recovery. So we'll see. But we are looking pretty decent right now. All right, syrup. So syrup looks great. Looks great. Some assets look better. All right, SHX. This one held up pretty good. SHX has always been volatile. It's been getting hit. It's been getting hit on all these retracements. When Bitcoin retraced in April, this got hit. But guess what? It recovers way better than a lot of alts. When Bitcoin took a hit in August 2024, it got hit too. But what did it do? It recovered very well. And now we took a hit again. And this is actually less percentage than these previous hits. So, like, you see what I'm talking about. Like, it takes a retracement, push, higher low, higher high, higher low, higher high. So let's see how quickly we can push out of here. We're basically just waiting for a push out of this range, and then it'll confirm that this isn't because once again, we're still a little like we're only 3 days out from that liquidation event. So I'm just being patient to see what type of games they play over here so we can finally get that push back to the upside. This has not changed my overall outlook on SHX. I do still think 5 cents, the all-time high, is like a magnet, and they just had to, take out longs and then push things right back to the upside. The macro trend is still respecting structure and everything. Everything is still lining up pretty well over here. So, 18 days left in October, so we still got a lot of days left in this month. And yeah, we'll see how quickly we can turn from here. I'm just trying to see if we swept any lows. Okay, so we swept this low. Okay, so yeah, we'll see by the end of this week, by the close of this weekly candle by Sunday. We would like to see SHX above 1.5 or 0.016 for sure. I would like to see this candle close off bullish. If not, then more than likely we may sweep this low one more time. So that's basically where we're at over here. It's still a little early, but The fact that we did get a little bit of a reaction is a good sign. And also, we got the wick, and then prices came slowly down into it and pushed to the upside. So I like how it's looking on the micro, but I'm just being a little patient because yeah, we're only a few days out from this overall liquidation event. And also there's a low right here at 0.011. So if it did end up sweeping that low one more time, it would sweep this one as well. So, there's just a lot of little things that may be pointing to where this can possibly just sweep that low one more time and then get a reaction from here. So I'm just being patient to see. Don't try to get the perfect entry if you're gonna add here. I'm not adding any here, not yet. I mean, most of my buys on SHX were all the way at the bottom anyway, but yeah, I'm not. It's a good buy. It's a good buy still. I'm just not adding any, but you can dollar cost average at these ranges. It's just that SHX, once it does wake up, it's gonna wake up quickly, and then it'll just get out of this range. So that's why I say don't look for the perfect entries because you could, if let's say you got $500, you could do 100 today, wait a couple days. If we go lower, you do another 100 or another 150. And then if we move higher, then you could, wait for a retracement or just add in another 100 and see if we retrace, like that's a better way to do it. Or you could just put it all at once, it doesn't matter. I mean, I just like to dollar cost average because I just know that the market, the algorithm loves to play games and it just loves to sweep lows, sweep highs, and then it starts to move, And as long as I'm buying low and selling high, that's all I care about. To be honest, I'm not trying to have any perfect entries all the time. Most of our buys were down here and over here and over here. So floating in profit. And I told you guys too, when I was selling up here, literally sold SHX right here, literally sold and rolled it over into, Plume. So those were some good sells, but I still hold a large position of my SHX still. So, still riding this one to these higher levels, just being patient, and we'll see how we recover from this specific retracement in the coming weeks. All right, so Velo, this ended up not too crazy to be honest, but it did come back down to this zone. So we ended up sweeping this low, and then we got a pretty good reaction. So not too bad since Friday. So we had Saturday, Sunday. We got a little reaction. And then today we're getting some decent price action, nothing too crazy. We'll see how we close this week as well. But I do like the fact that this, this is basically what I'm saying to where the market will come up and then come down and then continue. So certain assets like Velo it's looking like they already did that to where it retraced and now it's gonna continue, right? But it can be deceptive at times. So, they can do that too as well. So we'll see. I think Syrup did the same thing. Nah, so Syrup didn't do it as much, but did a little bit, so look at SHX. SHX kind of did the wick and then came down and then pushed. Velo did the wick, retraced a bit and then pushed. So definitely want to see how this ends up pushing out of this area. Like I told you guys, I did sell a bit of this, rolled it over into Plume as well, just because I had a big position in Velo, and I still do, but I've sold in total from my bag before I started selling. I've probably sold 10%. I think, yeah, I think 10%. So still got a pretty big position in Velo. But hey, if it does not, if let's say the rest of the market starts getting reactions and this just starts to slack off or breaks this high and then starts to slack again, it's gonna be time to start de-risking out of it. So I'm really curious to see how we react, within the next few months, or it's gonna be time to move it over to, something else or just de-risk out of it. Because, at this point of the year, it starts to get very dangerous as the yearly candle is closing. So, you know, if we do get an extension, then Velo does have the opportunity to bloom, right? But if we don't get an extension, let's say, once again, let's say Bitcoin tops out because the indicators are pointing things out. Let's say XRP heads to 20, $30. Let's say SHX only heads to like 10 cents, 15 cents. Like these are just conservative targets, right? And let's say Velo is only at like 8, 10 cents, or doesn't even push over five. Like it's gonna be time to, it could be dangerous, So you gotta we gotta pay attention to those things and see how prices are reacting at certain times, especially in this quarter. Because once the end of the year comes, a new yearly candle is going to be opening. And just price action right now, things that, especially alts that have not been performing, are very risky right now. Alts that have been performing are medium risk, such as SHX to me is medium risk. And I say medium because yes, it's done extremely well, but it's volatile, so it's medium risk. What else? Syrup is medium risk. It's pretty new, but it's medium risk, but it's performed extremely well compared to many others. So I'm not gonna ignore that. Definitely gotta pay attention to it. But when you take a look at this from the monthly time frame, this monthly low right here is the one in control of this entire move. So that's the zone right there. So as you can see, the price hit, we hit this once, twice, three times. We came in it again. And now we just came in it again and swept this low. So in reality, when price sweeps a low, is usually headed more than like more than likely to that high that created after the low was created. So this should bring us to higher prices. At a minimum, a little over 2 cents, 0.022 at a minimum, but we would definitely want to finally see that push. We would want to see that push. Once again, if we want to really track this over the next few weeks and months to make sure that this is reacting well, it's still in a decent spot. It hasn't broken all these lows. It's respecting them. So that's a great sign. This is basically one big demand zone. Like, look, this is basically a big demand zone over here. We take these off, look, it's basically respecting this demand zone. So still respecting these areas. Let's see if we can get a push out of here. So we'll definitely get to see within the next few weeks if price is gonna give us some type of reaction from these ranges. And if you take a look at the past, other specific assets, XRP has done this before where it just builds inside of a demand zone, just builds. This is how they trick, they get you impatient and then they make it fly. Then they make it fly. And we may be at that point where they just swept the low and then they're getting ready to turn it up. And let me just show you guys that example of what I'm talking about. So right here is a perfect example. Look, it's the demand zone. Look, then it swept the low and then it goes. Then it goes. Where else? It did this. It's done this many times. Back in 2017. Look at this. Built this little demand zone over here. Hit it once, twice, boom, swept the low, and then went. So, a lot of assets do this. Over here too. Look, this one right here. Look how many times it hit it. Once, twice, three. And look, this last one, it swept the low. You see, so for now, it's still within a good range as long as it's respecting that. Because if it wasn't respecting that, price would have just swept through it and continued lower. So, I just do not ignore that. So as long as it's respecting certain ranges, then it's still in a good spot. But we do want to see a reaction very, very soon because we're already in quarter four. and there's no time to be playing games. So we want to see a reaction pretty soon. And we did sweep that low. So let's see if we can finally get a reaction going higher.